Hey everybody, Brian here with So Wizard Podcasts. Back with the back half of the Letterboxd challenge. We did 89 to 2006 last week. Now we're going to do 2007 to 2024. Quick reminders, these are just my favorite movies. They're not the best movies of that year. And these aren't full reviews. They're just kind of my quick thoughts. Some will be longer than others, and that's fine. Kicking things off in 2007, we have Grindhouse, which technically is cheating because it's two movies. But a double feature from Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino was going to make this list. Their last collaboration from Dusk Till Dawn is on here. This was going to make the list easily. I actually have a video planned on the whole breakdown of Grindhouse, what it was trying to emulate, the breakdown of both movies, the fake trailers. But in terms of just the pure theatrical experiences, few things top a double feature from 5 amazing directors. 2 of those fake trailers have spawned actual movies and sequels, with Machete from Rodriguez and Eli Roth had Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, and a sequel's on its way probably next Thanksgiving. If you haven't had a chance to watch this in its theatrical presentation, you really need to do yourself the service and do it. 2008, The Dark Knight. Look, what needs to be said? It's The Dark Knight. Everything is elevated. It's elevated the genre. People turned and made Chris Nolan an overnight contender for, cinematic messiah. It's still in contention for best comic book movie ever made. There's not much that I can tell you that other people haven't said a million times before. So really, the real quick aside I have is 2008 was actually a really great year for movies. Iron Man kicked off the MCU. Cloverfield, which I just did a review on, and I'm sure a link will be somewhere in here. Tropic Thunder, Step Brothers, Speed Racer, In Bruges. In a year where so many great movies came out, Dark Knight still takes the cake, but let's not overlook any of the other solid contenders from that year. 2009, District 9. In a year of Avatars and Hurt Locker and Inglourious Bastards, to me, D9 reigns supreme, an original sci-fi movie that ultimately was just a consolation prize from Peter Jackson to director Neil Blomkamp after a Halo movie fell through. Taking his short film Alive in Joburg and expanding it to feature length, this blockbuster is so underrated. A sequel has been talked about since the movie came out in 2009, and I would trade just about every pre-existing franchise that's currently still going for District 10. Every time he makes another movie, I hope that this is the one for the studio, because his last film was Gran Turismo, hoping that he can leverage that to make District 10. This was the original Godzilla -1. It had a budget of $30 million. And in my opinion, it has better visuals than Avatar. People will call me crazy for that, but telling the real-life story of apartheid and genocide that director witnessed firsthand in Africa, its sci-fi allegory follows Sharlto Copley as his world just goes to complete hell. If you haven't seen this flick, do it now. Again, I would trade anything to watch the follow-up to this. 2010, I actually just changed this on the flip. It originally was going to be Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which I love because I love Edgar Wright movies. I really, really love Edgar Wright movies. Can't wait for The Running Man. But as I rewatched both over the weekend, I gotta give it to David Fincher's The Social Network. All problems with Zuckerberg and Meta and Facebook and Skynet aside, David Fincher made a movie about the creation of Facebook, and it was absolutely incredible. The score is phenomenal. This is actually the first movie that Adam and I saw together when we started hanging out, and we left it thinking it was probably the best movie of the year, if not the most iconic movie of the decade. Fincher says he wants to make a sequel, and I would love to see where he takes it, but game-changing performances from Eisenberg. Garfield really got on the map there. That's how I knew him when he became Spider-Man. And Justin Timberlake putting in work as Sean Parker just edges out Scott Pilgrim. And I love Scott Pilgrim a lot, but Social Network takes it. 2011, Red State. You were warned up front that these would not necessarily be the best movies of their year, but they would be my favorite movie of the year. Kevin Smith had gone and kind of peaked in his own way. If you've read his book, Tough Shit, he talks about how he made Zack and Miri make a porno, and that wasn't really a Kevin Smith movie. That was a Judd Apatow movie that Kevin Smith tried to make. So he wanted to do something completely different, change the tone, change the perspective, and he made Red State, which is part Waco standoff, part Kevin Smith movie, all around just such a weird hodgepodge of ideas that just works for me. Going back to his indie roots to the man that made Clerks, You now have a situation where he self-distributed the movie. This is the first of the many road tours he would do that I would go watch him talk about the movie and get to watch the movie with him. All in all, if you haven't seen Red State, it's probably nothing game-changing for you. John Goodman and Melissa Leo rush their performances. The late Michael Parks is absolutely incredible. But it was probably one of those movies that resonated more with me at the time it was released, because that was when I was really getting into film. I did my first 2 sets in 2011. I did Pines and R.I.P. So to have Kevin go back to his indie roots, I think it was at the right moment in time for me, and that's why it wins the spot. 2012. You all probably think I'm going to say The Dark Knight Rises, or The Avengers, or Skyfall, or Looper. But nope. 2012 goes to the little-known Seven Psychopaths, probably the most underrated movie on this list. Martin McDonagh directs a movie about a screenwriter played by Colin Farrell as he tries to make a movie called Seven Psychopaths, leading an incredible ensemble including Sam Rockwell, Woody Harrelson, Christopher Walken, and Colin Farrell, who was coming off of In Bruges, so I was starting to see him as more of a serious actor. Still a decade before we see him as Oz, and now his amazing turn as Penguin in the TV series. But this is probably one of those movies where you can watch it and pick something up different every time. Super dark comedy, which is always right up my alley. Had probably the most adorable dog I've ever seen. All in all, worth the watch if you have the time. 2013, The Wolf of Wall Street. Honestly, the only Scorsese flick I have on the list. It wasn't even that hard to come up with this one. Leo was backing Django Unchained. This was really when he was pushing hardcore for the Oscar. And it is one of the most brilliantly done cautionary tales I've ever seen. Every bro in the world started quoting Jordan Belfort. Everyone started following the mentality of excess, excess, excess. Scorsese is doing this as a cautionary tale through hilarious comedy. But when you think about it in the context of there's an actual person that did all this stuff, and Jordan Belfort has no apologies. He's at peace with who he was now. The most iconic interview he ever did is the movie was out and they were doing press, and they're like, some of this has to be exaggerated. You didn't take expired Quaaludes and crash a Lamborghini Countach. And Jordan, not even missing a beat, he's like, well, yeah, they exaggerated that a bit. It wasn't a Countach. It was actually a Mercedes. Telling the story of how this man defrauded the government and made billions, introducing the world to Margot Robbie. Probably one of the best small appearances from McConaughey. Everyone's already seen Wolf of Wall Street. Easily my favorite movie of the year. Y'all tired of me talking about Matt Reeves yet? 2014, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. The first Matt Reeves of the duology that he did for those movies. Matt comes in after Rise of the Planet of the Apes is a surprise hit and delivers arguably one of the best opening sequences in any movie ever. Like Dark Knight bank heist levels of incredible is the hunting sequence from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. There's no dialogue and it's beautiful. In a movie where there is so little dialogue and all these apes are communicating through sign language or just through their emotive properties because of Andy Serkis' mocap, you have such a compelling story surrounded by so many interesting characters. You have Gary Oldman in here. You have Jason Patric. Everyone is just delivering so well. And it was really the start of that and Cloverfield where I knew Matt Reeves was going to be able to just crush anything he does. He did War for the Planet of the Apes in 2017. Didn't make the cut for this list, but ultimately is a very satisfying conclusion. 2015, you probably think this is going to be The Force Awakens, but nope. The Hateful Eight, which probably a lot of controversy because some people call it Tarantino's weakest movie outside of Death Proof. I'm going to put a little caveat to it. I saw the 70mm Roadshow edition, so had the intermission. Before the Netflix extended cut, it was the quintessential version of the flick. And it's amazing. It's part The Thing. I love submarine movies, one location, great performances from all parties. Really started to get a feel for Walton Goggins coming in as Chris Mannix. Sam Jackson has that amazing monologue when he's messing with the general. But, I mean, you got Kurt Russell basically doing the Civil War era thing, and as it slowly unravels the mystery. Though my personal standout is Tim Roth as Oswaldo Mowbray. Favorite character in the movie. Would watch 10 spin-offs of just him if Tarantino would ever make his last movie. 2016, 13 hours. And I know I know I'm probably going to lose all credibility for this list because it has a Michael Bay movie. Nobody has shit on Michael Bay more from 2009 to 2016 than me. Transformers 2 is the only movie I have ever walked out of. And there's a whole story behind that. But no, in all honesty, it's 13 hours. This one was kind of a deciding factor for me when I was getting ready to enlist. I really liked the concept of being a part of something bigger. I'm not here to discuss politics. I'm here to talk about movies. Bay was trying. Great performances by Krasinski. Actually does some pretty solid tactics and weapons handling work. Like, was pretty impressed because most of those times movies piss me off for shit like that. I have a very personal connection to this movie. I understand Bay is not everyone's cup of tea. He's 9 times out of 10 not mine unless you go back to his older stuff. But I have to put it on the list. 2017, Logan. So I was at basic training for the fall and winter of 2016. And the day that I got released for block leave at the end of basic before I would go start the back half of my training, I got 3 weeks off for Christmas. And the first thing I did when I got back to the hotel that my dad was at was I caught up on movie trailers that I had missed. I saw the trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming. I saw the trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Fast and Furious 8, and Logan's trailer set to Johnny Cash's Hurt told me everything that I needed to know about this movie, that it was going to be amazing. It was going to be Hugh Jackman's swan song, send off the character in a respectful manner, well before the MCU would come and bring him back and make a joke about it. The movie is really a perfect send-off to the character that I was very emotionally attached to. Like I said, I was, I think, 9 or 10 when the first X-Men movie came out, took my dad to it, and while he hated it, I immediately gravitated towards Hugh's character. I was always happy when he would make an appearance. He had some highs, like X2. He had some lows, like X-Men Origins. But he was consistent, and he was passionate about the character throughout the entire time. Watch that man's press for X-Men Origins after the movie leaked. He was still selling the absolute crap out of it, knowing full well it was a turd. But he used that and the Wolverine to leverage being able to have the confidence to make Logan, and it paid off so well. 2018, Mission Impossible Fallout. I love the Mission Impossible franchise. There will be videos on that, especially as The Final Reckoning comes out, and that's a stupid title. But through all of the Mission Impossibles, from 3 on, 6 takes the cake. It is one of those rare moments where an action film elevates itself. It's in the same category to me as Skyfall and Mad Max Fury Road. It is a perfect action movie. Tom Cruise delivers on all of his own stunts. Cavill got a chance to really shine as an actor. Loved seeing what he did with that. I can't say enough good about it. Every sequence improves upon itself. You have the Halo jump. You have the Paris chase. You have the helicopter chase at the end. You have the foot chase through London where Cruise actually broke his foot and kept going. It is a perfect balance of action and humor without one overtaking the other. I thought that's where they were going to end the franchise. They went on and did Dead Reckoning Part 1, which I also loved, but it didn't really gravitate towards that many people. I think it just had a bad release date. The next one will kind of be a deciding factor on if it's overstayed its welcome. I absolutely would put Mission Impossible over any other movie that came out in 2018. And I know which one you thought it was going to be, but we'll talk about that next year. 2019, Avengers Endgame. You knew there was going to be an MCU movie on here at some point. Endgame isn't better than Infinity War. Endgame isn't the best MCU movie for me at all. That's still Winter Soldier. But Endgame did something unheard of. It wrapped up 23 movies. It made your least favorite movie relevant. Dark World became vital information. Ultron became vital information as it was a send-off to all of these characters. Having been on the MCU roller coaster from Jump in 2008, I skipped school so I could go see Iron Man. I got press passes to go see Incredible Hulk early. And I did a midnight showing of every MCU movie through Doctor Strange when I was gone for basic, and then back. And I continued to watch every single one, the first showing, usually with my friends, to experience it. And to have Infinity War in 18 and then Endgame in 19 back to back was something I'll probably always remember, and I will be super thankful that I was there for. The MCU may have overstayed its welcome, but all in all, Endgame could have been the end of the MCU, and as far as I'm concerned, it really was the end of the comic book genre, because very few things after have been able to live up to its own hype. 2020. So we start the pandemic. Numerous movies were delayed. I think only like 15 movies came into theaters. So I had to go. It wasn't going to be Bad Boys 3. It wasn't going to be Birds of Prey, which I think was the last thing I saw in theaters that year. Actually, no, I saw Tenet with my now wife. It's actually Extraction, the Chris Hemsworth Netflix action flick. And I love that movie. It is pure fun. Hemsworth doing all of his own stunts, the long takes. It's just Netflix's answer to John Wick. And I think that it's something that needs to be appreciated. The cinematography and action sequences are top notch. Hemsworth does a great job kind of diversifying himself from being Thor, especially because at that point, Thor had kind of become goofy again. Too much Taika, not enough Russo. I love everything about this movie. I think it's a good time. It's a good way to kill 2 hours. It's a good way to want to get motivated to be in shape. The sequel's even better. I hope they make a third one, because it looks like Idris Elba and him were going to team up for a third part. If it ever comes out, I'll be first in line to watch it. 2021. No Time to Die. I thought it was going to be another streaming year. 2021 was kind of weird. HBO Max did that weird/bad thing where movies were released in theaters and at the same day they came out on Max, which was great because I got to just sit at home and watch things and I didn't have to worry about getting COVID. No Time to Die finally came out. It was when No Time to Die got delayed, I figured out that the pandemic was serious. I was actually at a military school when things were really ramping up, so my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, would be giving me information. I had tickets to see No Time to Die opening day, and then I got the alert that they were all getting canceled and refunded because every movie was getting pushed back because theaters weren't open. Casino Royale is my favorite movie. There are people that are going to say that No Time to Die is a slap in the face to the franchise. There are people that say that it's woke. There are people that say all sorts of stupid shit. I love the James Bond franchise from Dr. No through Die Another Day. I think that is main branch continuity. Your Connery, your Lazenby, your Moore, your Dalton, your Bronson. When Craig came in 2006, they kind of Tris Nolan did, and it branched off into its own timeline. Yes, Judi Dench came over. There were very few and far between elements that survived the transition. In the same way that there were few elements that survived the Bana to Norton Hulk adaptations. Killing James Bond isn't the end of James Bond. It is the end of Daniel Craig's James Bond, because he has a definitive beginning with Casino Royale, a definitive middle with Skyfall, and a definitive end with No Time to Die. You might not necessarily agree with that ending, but it's there. And I think that Eon and the internet is making a much bigger deal out of how it ended than it actually is. To the people that are bitching that, oh, he's not even 007. 007 is a number. It is a job. There are only 9 positions. It's not like football where you get to retire your number when you give it up. Plus, Craig quit or went rogue or retired in every movie. I think that for what it was able to do, it definitely was a satisfying conclusion to Craig's tenure as the character. It may not be the satisfying conclusion to the character, but for that iteration, I think that it deserves the respect that it gets. 2022, The Batman. More Matt Reeves. I love this movie. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with this movie. From the moment that the first DC Fandom trailer dropped, I have probably been one of Robert Pattinson's biggest naysayers. I would crap on Twilight like it was my job before I would ever think about sitting in front of a camera and talking about movies. When they cast him, I was skeptical. I hadn't seen Good Time. I had seen Tenet at that point. They were already filming. I'd seen set photos, and I wasn't really loving what I was seeing in the set photos because it looked weird. It looked like nothing I'd seen before. Matt Reeves, having only filmed 20% of the movie, made a teaser trailer. Dropped it. We were expecting like maybe a minute of footage like Comic-Con. Full trailer. Saw the trailer before the Suicide Squad when I saw that in theaters. It set tone. It showed that Pattinson was going to own that role. Got glimpses of Oz, got glimpses of Selena, got glimpses of the Batmobile, all set to Nirvana, Something in the Way. Ending on Pattinson beating the absolute shit out of someone and proclaiming not I'm Batman, but I'm vengeance. I knew as soon as he said I'm vengeance that I was going to love this movie. And I followed it so closely during the production, through delay after delay after delay, to ultimately get to the fans' first screening with my buddy, March 1st, and loving it. 3 hours of noir-driven Batman. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people prefer Batfleck. Some people prefer Bale. Some people say Pattinson's too skinny. I'd say show me your physique. Matt Reeves has made a simply unique take on a character and is developing that universe. We just had Penguin. Unfortunately, part 2 has just been delayed. It sounds like Matt had some personal stuff going on in his life that's causing delay. It is set to start filming this year. When it starts filming, I will be super excited. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hoping that Matt doesn't get bullied into blending Pattinson and his universe into James Gunn's DCU, because I don't have a lot of faith in it, if I'm being honest with you. I love the Batman. I love the Batman epic crime saga. Watch the Batman. Watch the Penguin. Be excited for the Batman Part 2 when it comes out, hopefully by 2027 and doesn't get delayed again. 2023, Oppenheimer. Chris Nolan made a 3-hour biopic that's partially black and white about the creation of the atomic bomb, and I sat and watched it probably 4 or 5 times in 70mm. It is that engaging. Cillian Murphy crushes it. Robert Downey Jr. steps away from the I am Iron Man, Tony Stark baggage and delivers a performance that I honestly thought that Damon was going to get the Best Supporting Actor nomination that year because of his portrayal as the General. That third act, when Downey gets unhinged during his hearing, is game-changing. That switch. Like, there's always a little bit of twinge of resentment from Strauss to Oppenheimer, but when Downey just unleashes, it is beautiful. Cinematography, it won every Oscar. Everything is great about this movie. So naturally, it was going to be my favorite movie of 2023, because it sure as hell wasn't going to be Last Voyage of the Demeter, because that movie sucks. And 2024, it's really not a surprise, because one of the first videos I made for you guys was my top 10 movies of last year, and it is Dune Part 2. I'm going to try to say things that I didn't just say in that video. It is the Empire Strikes Back of this generation. It is the middle piece of a trilogy. Messiah starts filming in September. It comes out next Christmas. I have now read Dune. It's a very different adaptation from the book to the movie. There's a lot of stuff that got skimmed down or cut out to make room for other things. Paul Atreides is doing the prequels better than the prequels. I can understand his reasoning for becoming an anti-hero. He is an anti-hero. He is not a protagonist. In fact, that's why the author of the books wrote Messiah, so that you could see Paul's issues with his own actions. We're at a point where it is still, I think, in my opinion, in the top 5 greatest sequels of all time. And for that, it was easily going to make the top of my list. And that's it, guys. That's my favorite movie from every year that I've been alive. Really appreciate you guys sticking it out, letting me make this. Hope you guys leave some comments below. Tell me what you like, what you didn't like, what you agree with, what you don't agree with. Whatever it is, comment below, let me know, and let's see what we can talk about.